Now, let's look at the second text from the 2015 SATs Reading Comprehension paper. We have Weird but Wonderful, the Octopus, and we can see that this is a non-chronological report about the octopus. So we have a picture, a labelled diagram, and then we have information in boxes. So we have the subheadings, an amazing body, defense and attack, and invertebrate imitators. We also have information presented in a table and a list of octopus facts. Now, after having a quick look at the reading booklet, what I like to do is open the answer booklet and have a look at the first question. Question 13. What allows octopuses to be extremely flexible? So let's start reading the text. An amazing body. Octopuses are boneless animals, and because of this, their bodies are extremely flexible, allowing them to squeeze through small spaces. So the reason why their bodies are extremely flexible is because they are boneless animals. So for this question, we get the mark for any reference to octopuses having no bones. So we could write boneless or they have no bones. The mark scheme says also accept that they are invertebrates or they have no backbone, but do not accept synonyms for flexible. So we can't say they are squishy or they are bendy, because that's just defining what the word flexible means. And this isn't a vocabulary question, this is a retrieval question. We need to know what it is that allows octopuses to be extremely flexible. Question 14a. Which body part does an octopus use to move through the water? And part B, how does this body part help it to move? So let's continue reading the text. To swim, an octopus squirts jets of water through a tube called a siphon. The force of these jets is powerful enough to move the octopus quickly through the water. So we know that it uses a siphon, and because it squirts jets of water through them, this force allows them to move. So for part A, we need to write siphon, and for part B, we need to refer to water being squirted or blown or pushed through the siphon. So we need to refer to the force of the water. For example, we could write, it blows water through it, or squirting jets of water through the siphon. The mark scheme says do not accept answers referring to the release of water with no reference to force. So we can't write water comes out through the siphon, because though that's true, the reason why this body part helps it to move is because it creates force. It squirts or blows or pushes water through it. Question 15. Where is the most of an octopus's nervous system located? So we need to write a place in the octopus's body. Let's continue reading the text. The octopus travels backwards with its 8 tentacles trailing behind it. These tentacles have suction cups or suckers with sensors that enable them to taste whatever they touch. So here they've not yet told us where the nervous system or most of the nervous system is located, so let's keep on reading. Below this section we have a labelled diagram of an octopus, then a photograph, but if we keep on reading, octopuses have the largest brains of any invertebrate, an animal that does not have a backbone. They can learn and invent solutions to problems. Captive octopuses have been observed to play, repeatedly releasing bottles or toys into a circular current in their tanks and then catching them again. Octopuses often escape from their tanks in search of food, and sometimes even break into the tanks of other creatures. They have also been known to board fishing boats and open the cargo hold to eat crabs. The way the octopus's nervous system is organised means that only part of it is in the brain. So here, this paragraph, they're talking about the nervous system of the octopus, so this is where we're likely to find our answer. The majority of an octopus's nerve cells are actually in its tentacles. So we can guess that the nerve cells make up the nervous system, and therefore we have our answer for this question. Most of an octopus's nervous system is located in the tentacles. We know from the text that this paragraph is describing the nervous system, and the majority is another word for most. So most of the nerve cells, most of the nervous system is in its tentacles. And for this question, we need to read really carefully. Lots of children wrote brain as the answer, but if we read the sentence, the way the octopus's nervous system is organised means that only part of it is in the brain. So only part of it does not mean the same as most of it. That means only a small bit of it. The majority of means the most of, so that's why the answer to this question is in its tentacles. Question 16. The table on page 8 contains information that is weird but wonderful about octopus's tentacles. Give 2 other pieces of information about octopus's tentacles that could have been included in this table. And it's important here that we read the question carefully. We want other pieces of information that could have been included. So we don't want to take information from the table. We want to look at the rest of the text and see what other pieces of information it gives about octopus's tentacles. But let's read the table first, and then we can make sure that we don't include any information here in our answer, because we want other pieces of information. Part of body, tentacle, how many? 8. What it does, catches and chokes prey. Weird but wonderful, the underside of each tentacle is covered in 240 suckers. That means an octopus has a total of 1,920 suckers. So let's continue reading the text from where we were up to and find other information about octopus's tentacles. This has some curious results. When an octopus's tentacle is cut off, it will crawl away on its own. So that's one piece of information about an octopus's tentacle that isn't included in the table. If it gets cut off, it will crawl away on its own. But that's not all. If this tentacle meets a food item, it will seize it and try to pass it to where the mouth would have been if it was still connected to the body. So that's another piece of information about the tentacle. If it meets a food item, even if it's cut off, it will try to pass it to where the mouth would have been. So we can answer the question. We can write that when detached or when it's cut off, it can move or function or feed an imaginary mouth. For example, if it is cut off, it can still move, or it tries to feed itself when detached. But notice for this question, we needed to write 2 pieces of information, and in the mark scheme, this only counts as 1 piece, because it's about what happens when the tentacles is detached. So it can still move and it tries to feed itself cannot count as 2 different things because they're both about what happens when it's cut off. So we need to think of something else. We could think back to what we looked at when we answered the last question. So we could write that the tentacle contains the majority of its nerve cells. Or we could continue reading the text from where we were up to. So after what we've read, we have the table that's in the question, and then we have another section of information here. So we could continue reading. If we get to this last paragraph in the section, we have, if necessary, An octopus can squeeze into tiny cracks and crevices where predators can't reach it. If all else fails, an octopus can lose a tentacle to escape a predator's grasp and regrow it later. So that's another fact about the octopus's tentacles. It can lose a tentacle to escape a predator's grasp and regrow it later. So we could include that fact to answer the question. Or, if we scan what we've already read, we can remember that tentacles were written in this section here. So the octopus travels backwards with its 8 tentacles, but we can't write it has 8 tentacles because that's already in the table and we need other information. These tentacles have suction cups or suckers. That's another fact that's already in the table, so we can't use that. But if we read on, with sensors that enable them to taste whatever they touch, and the table doesn't mention that the suckers allow them to taste, so we could write that as one of our other pieces of information as well. The mark scheme says do not accept any details already included in the table, so we can't write it has 8 tentacles or 240 suckers because the question specifically asks for information that's not in the table, so we need to read the question carefully. Question 17. How does releasing black ink help the octopus to escape from predators? Give 2 ways. So, because the question is about escaping from predators, we're most likely to find our answer in this section here, defense and attack. Octopuses have a number of different ways to defend themselves. They have a well-developed ability to hide. For example, the common octopus is able to camouflage itself by changing its skin to match the colours, patterns, and even textures of its surroundings. Predators such as sharks, eels, and dolphins swim by without even noticing it. So that's how it defends itself, but the question specifically referred to how it uses black ink to defend itself, so we need to read on. When an octopus is discovered, it releases a cloud of black ink. So we know that we're going to find our answer in this paragraph here. This blocks the predator's view, giving the octopus time to escape. The ink also contains a substance that can reduce the predator's ability to smell, making the fleeing octopus even harder to track. So this paragraph gives us 2 things that the black ink does to defend it from predators. It blocks the predator's view, and it reduces the predator's ability to smell. We could also write that it gives the octopus time to escape, or makes it harder to track. So, to answer this question, we can write the predator can't see the octopus, or the ink blocks the predator's view. We can have the predator can't smell the octopus, or the ink reduces the predator's ability to smell. We can write gives them longer to escape, or makes them harder to track. Question 18. Look at the section headed Defense and Attack. Octopuses can squeeze into small spaces. How does this protect them? So let's look at the section Defense and Attack in the text. We've read most of this already. Remember, this first paragraph this paragraph here was about how they can camouflage themselves. Then this paragraph was about how they can release black ink. So let's look at this paragraph at the bottom. If necessary, an octopus can squeeze into tiny cracks and crevices where predators can't reach it. If all else fails, an octopus can lose a tentacle to escape a predator's grasp and regrow it later. So, the way it protects itself from predators is to squeeze into tiny cracks and crevices because that way the predators can't reach it. So to answer this question, we just need to identify that predators can't reach them. So we could write other animals cannot reach into the tiny spaces to get them, or predators are too big to get at them. The mark scheme says do not accept references to hiding without further development. And here, skimming and scanning for the phrase small spaces wouldn't help us, because if we look at the text, we have tiny cracks and crevices. But we could guess that tiny cracks and crevices are the same as small spaces. We know that tiny means the same as small, so though we can't skim and scan to find the exact words in the question, if we read the text carefully, we can find the information that we're looking for. Question 19. Octopuses are very determined. Give 2 examples from the text that support this. So there are lots of questions in the SATs papers where you have to say what someone or something is like and then give examples or evidence to support your view. But for this question, they've told us that octopuses are very determined, and all we need to do is give 2 examples from the text. So let's continue reading the text from where we were up to. So let's look at this section here, invertebrate imitators. An octopus in a German zoo learned to open jars of shrimps by copying zoo staff. The octopus, named Frida, opened the jars by pressing her whole body onto the lid and grasping the sides with her 8 tentacles. She unscrewed the lid by repeatedly twisting her body. It took Frida anything from 10 seconds to an hour to get a lid off, depending on how tightly it had been screwed on. So this shows that octopuses are determined because it took her up to an hour to get a lid off, but she continued twisting her body for the whole hour in order to do so. So one example is that it took Frida anything up to an hour to open the jar. But we need to give 2 examples from the text. So let's think back to what we've already read. What shows that octopuses are determined? Well, if we look at this section here, we're told octopuses often escape from their tanks in search of food, and sometimes even break into the tanks of other creatures. They have also been known to board fishing boats and open the cargo hold to eat crabs. So that's another thing they do that shows their determination. When they want food, they're determined to get it, and to do that, they escape from their tanks, break into the tanks of other creatures, or board fishing boats. So that can be our second example. They can break out of or into tanks, board fishing boats, or open cargo holds to get food. Another example of how they're determined is in this section here, because we're told that if all else fails, an octopus can lose a tentacle to escape a predator's grasp and regrow it later. So the octopus is so determined to escape from a predator that it will lose a tentacle. They will lose a tentacle in order to escape a predator. Question 20. What is special about octopus wolfie? So let's have a look at the section that we've not read yet about octopus facts. If we scan it, we can see that octopus wolfie is written here under the heading smallest octopus. So that tells us that octopus wolfie is the smallest octopus. It can be as light as 1 gram, the weight of 1 raisin, and it measures 1.5 centimeters in length. So we can write that it is the smallest octopus, or it only weighs 1 gram, or it is only 1.5 centimeters long, or it weighs the same as a raisin. Question 21. Which octopus produces a poison that can kill people? Let's continue reading octopus facts. Venom is another word for poison, So we'll find our answer in this section here. The tiny blue-ringed octopus of Australia is the only octopus that has venom deadly to humans. And here, even if we didn't know that the word venom means poison, we could guess that because it describes the venom as being deadly to humans, and poison, of course, could be deadly to humans. So our answer is the tiny blue-ringed octopus of Australia. Question 22a. What creatures do octopuses eat? Well, if we look back to our octopus facts, we have a section called diet, and the diet of a creature is what it eats. So we have carnivore, crabs, crayfish, shellfish. So a carnivore eats other animals, and after the colon is listed the things that it eats. So here we can write crabs, crayfish or shellfish, or we could also write shrimps. B. What creatures eat octopuses? Now here we won't find the answer in octopus facts, but remember sometimes we need to look back to an earlier section, especially if we're getting towards the end of the questions on a section. So let's look at defense and attack, because that was about the predators an octopus has. We have in this sentence here, predators such as sharks, eels and dolphins swim by without even noticing it. So they've told us that sharks, eels and dolphins are the predators of octopuses, so that means they're the creatures that eat octopuses. Question 23. Draw a line to match the heading with the information that is provided in each text box of Weird but Wonderful the Octopus. So we have the headings, Octopus Facts, Defense and Attack, Invertebrate Imitators, and An Amazing Body. And the information is an explanation of how octopuses swim, simple statements about octopuses, an example of how octopuses learn, and a description of how octopuses escape from predators. So this is a summarise question. We need to summarise what each heading is about. So what we could do here is look back at our reading booklet and see what we've underlined under each of these headings, because that will remind us or give us a clue as to the information contained under these headings. And if we do that, we'll see that Octopus Facts contains simple statements about octopuses. Defense and Attack is a description of how octopuses escape from predators. Invertebrate Imitators is an example of how octopuses learn, and An Amazing Body is an explanation of how octopuses swim. Question 24. Where would you expect to find the text Weird but Wonderful the Octopus? Tick 1. On the front page of a newspaper, in an advertising leaflet for an aquarium, in a report on a scientific investigation, or in a magazine about the natural world. So we need to think of the features of these different genres of writing. Now a newspaper will always be about current events, so what's happened recently or what happened yesterday. But the report on octopuses isn't about what happened recently, it's giving us general information. So we would not find this text on the front page of a newspaper. And we wouldn't find the text in an advertising leaflet, because advertising leaflets try to persuade us to do something or buy something, and this text isn't trying to persuade us to do anything, it's just giving us some interesting information. In a report on a scientific investigation is wrong, because though it's a report, the report is not on a scientific investigation. There's not an investigation. They've not tried to find out one specific thing. They've just given us lots of information. So we'll find the text in a magazine about the natural world. It's about nature, or a creature that is found in nature, so it's a part of the natural world. And a magazine will have reports or sections that give us information about different things. So that's where we would find this text.